Like I was this young kid, like most of them were in their 20s and 30s, and they like they really just embraced me for who I was. And I think I've since reflected, my mom was a lot like this as well. Like I've learned a lot about that and just being inclusive and welcoming others and seeing them for who they are. And I was on the receiving end of that. So it was amazing.
Andrew, thank you for being here. It was so cool meeting you in person earlier this year. So I feel like this is going to be a little bit of a more in-depth chat because we know a
Yeah.
little bit more about each other. Sometimes I speak with people I've never met, so yeah, we can chat nicely here. But just to start, for those people who haven't met you, tell them a little bit about you.
Yeah, Candice, thanks so much for having me on your show. You're right. Like having met in person, this is just already like so much more exciting and to me, and I think we're gonna have a great conversation. So, yeah, we obviously share a lot in common. We met at a conference for people in talent development space, so we both work in that industry. I run a company called Curious Lion. We're a leadership development consultancy. And yeah, I've been doing that for about 8 years, and I absolutely love helping people realize their potential.
Nice. Big things there.
Yeah,
Realize your potential. I feel like that feels so lofty, but honestly, I share lofty goals, so I
yeah,
resonate so much with that.
yeah.
All right, so now we're gonna park that. We'll get back to it. But now, and it's my favorite part of the show, we travel back in time to
Hmm.
young Andrew. Where were you? What was that first job you ever got where you got that little bit of money or a little bit of responsibility?
Yeah, yeah. So the first job I ever got, well, was actually I felt like it was that I was being punished. So my parents made me work in a retail store, Pick and Pay, at in South Africa, one of the largest retailers in South Africa. And my dad spent 30 years at that company in accounting roles. I was studying accounting at the time. Actually, no, I was still in high school, but I was going to go on that path of studying accounting and all that. And yeah, they really insisted that I get this job, and so I worked Sundays essentially in yeah checkout type roles, and eventually worked in like a refund counter, managing the refunds for the store. And yeah, I mean, it felt like absolute punishment at first. I would have to, they'd come pick me up if I was at a friend's house the night before. Like they'd come pick me up really early in the morning, take me to my shift, come back on a Sunday afternoon. My friends had like, you know, watched sport or gone done like cool things during the day, and I was working in this retail environment. So it was tough at first, but I actually just recently reflected on this, funny enough, and I learned a ton from that environment, which I'm happy to go into. But
Yes,
yeah,
that is what we're going to go into for sure.
yeah,
And I can, oh, that punishment elements, like, oh, all my friends are out having so much fun, and that
yeah,
FOMO. I don't know if you have FOMO. I certainly do.
yeah,
So,
definitely,
yeah,
yeah,
but now tell us, what did you learn the hard times? So you were checkout, so you would like
yeah.
pack bags and things
Pack
when we were allowed to have
bags.
bags.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Packed shelves. Yeah, eventually like ran the checkout till and then eventually ran the refund section. And I worked in a store in a very it's a hypermarket. So it's a very large location in a very poor neighborhood in Cape Town. And and I was going to like a private school in South Africa, sort of came from like solidly middle class, but like was my parents were punching above to put me in the school, and it was a very privileged environment. So compared to the people I was working with, was extremely privileged. Um, Fair to say, I probably am very privileged. And so I was like a massive sort of outlier when I first went there, and I think there was obviously some resentment as well because my dad worked there and he got me the job, and I only worked on Sundays, and these kind of things. And but actually, I just remember, like, even from the beginning, despite all that, the warmth with which people welcomed me was amazing. Like, I was this young kid, like most of them were in their 20s and 30s, and they they really just embraced me for who I was. And I think I've since reflected. My mom was a lot like this as well. Like I've learned a lot about that and just being inclusive and welcoming others and seeing them for who they are. And I was on the receiving end of that, so it was amazing to experience. Um, it also taught me how to talk to and work with people from very diverse backgrounds, very different backgrounds to me, and I think that's been invaluable in my career. I've always had this ability to talk to people of kind of all levels inside a company. Um, Worked with so many companies in my life, from being an accountant and auditor to now doing what I do. And I could talk to the intern and the CEO and have a really in-depth conversation. And I think I learned a lot of that there, being able to do that. And I think the last thing, especially in the refund section, I was dealing with a lot of like people that this company has like a 30-day no questions asked return policy, but a lot of people would bring items that were very clearly fallen off the back of a truck, like shaving, like blades for shaving was one example. Diapers, like another good example. And I would have to navigate this very difficult conversation where like the person didn't have a receipt, and like um, and I struggled with that at first and a lot for a long time. But I think I learned a lot about how to have that difficult conversation. I knew when to push back and when not to. And yeah, so in a way, I mean, not in a way, I am very grateful for my parents to put me through that. It was an incredible experience, even though I didn't love it at the time.
Hmm. So many things came up there. And I'm wondering, because I also find it very easy to speak with anyone on any level in any organization. I feel comfortable speaking with CEOs. I feel comfortable speaking with any person within a company, and I just wonder if it is that diversity in South Africa that we almost take for granted,
Yeah.
maybe. Because you just made me reflect for the first time on that. Like maybe, yeah, maybe it is
I I think so. I
that
mean,
that kind of runs in our veins almost. I
yeah.
don't know if that's too presumptuous, or I don't
Yeah,
know.
I think it's an interesting hypothesis, and we both are raising children here in America. And one of the things we're very fortunate to live in a great suburb in New Jersey, but like it's quite monoculture in that. And I sometimes, and so like I think like I sometimes look at my childhood and like, wow, the sort of diversity of people that I went to school with, and I look at my son, who's sort of the furthest along in his schooling, and it's like, wow, it's very much all kids that look like him.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
yeah, I don't know if you've had that experience.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
And that's my husband will say, because I mean, we first put our kids in school in South Africa, but like preschool. And
yeah,
he said it was so easy picking our kids up because they were the only white kids.
yeah.
Then we get to America, and then he was like, "Oh, where's my child?" Because everyone looks the same.
Yeah,
He's
no,
like,
that's
"Please
like
just pick
that's
up the right child."
that's that's
Instead of
yeah,
take some random stranger kid home because he's also blonde. I'm like,
yeah,
come on.
yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, that's a very interesting point. It's something I actually haven't reflected on. So thank you
Me
for bringing
neither.
that up. That's
Yeah,
very
until
cool.
now. No, I think
Yeah,
that's super
yeah,
interesting.
that's very
Yeah,
cool. All
yeah.
right. So having that experience, is there one story that you can share, and especially the refunds, and you mentioned the
Mm,
falling off the back of a truck. Is there any particular story that you can share with us that really, I don't know, that stayed with you over the years?
yeah. Um, I think so. The story that comes to mind is actually how I ended up like getting out of that, and the next job I did, which I think this is interesting and relevant to kind of how your podcast works. So most of the stories I have are similar to that. Just dealing with people who were very clearly trying to get you know get, get money from something they'd stolen. But the I'll never forget. So I was doing that for probably, I don't know, 2 years or something, give or take. And that's kind of what I knew as a job. Like you go somewhere, you clock. I literally had to like clock in. You do your shift, you do your thing, you clock out, and that was it. And the company told me how much I was going to get paid per hour, and then I'd get this check, thing or whatever at the end of the month. And a friend of my dad's, very good friend, family friend of ours, and we became very close as well. He sat me down, and I just matriculated at this point. So I was in my first year of college, and I did really well at school. I started to slack off and party a bit in college, but I was like very studious in school and got like sort of top 10 results. And he was like, "You're very good at maths. Like, why don't you teach kids maths?" And like that whole idea was so foreign to me. I was like, what do you mean? Like, is this like a thing I can apply for? Like, is it what, like, how do I do this? He's like, no, you just like, he's like, let me show you. You just like create like an ad thing. We put it up in the library and just like various places. We'd start to like message a few people that we knew who had kids in school and said, this is this thing I do, and this is what I charge. I was like, what do you like? I decide what I charge. Like, I make up the number, and it was a lot more. It was a lot higher than the number I was getting paid at Pick and Pay. And I'll just never forget this. I'm so thankful for that guy, for Don, if he's listening, for showing me the world of entrepreneurship, because I had no concept of that. It just wasn't even in my worldview. And for anybody listening, there is so much that's not in your worldview. Like, I just didn't know this even existed. And yeah, I mean, that's what I did. I tried that. I got one or two kids that were, parents were willing to spend extra on a math tutor, and I would go and drive to their house and spend an hour with them and help them with problems. And I loved it. And that's where I fell in love with learning as well. So yeah, I mean, that was a big turning point for me.
Wow, that's okay. So that is very cool, and I love that you pointed that out, and I'm going to highlight it too. There is so much outside of your worldview, like
So
when you're that young.
yeah,
And
even now.
when you're in that moment, the clever person that knows everything, and I was certainly one of those. Like, I knew everything. I knew life was going to be like this thing that
Yeah,
was so
yeah, the path.
amazing, and
Yeah,
so
yeah,
I love that, and I'm calling that out to you. There is so much outside of your worldview.
yeah,
Love that. Okay, and then so you studied accounting. Something I learned about you recently. I was like,
yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Okay. Feels left field, but let's get
yeah,
into that. So you studied
yeah.
accounting, qualified, right? All of that.
Yeah,
You
qualified,
went
did my
through.
articles. Yeah, became a chartered accountant in South Africa. And I was on this track of like, oh, I'm going to be the CEO of a company, or I want to be the CEO of a company one day. So I'm going to, hit those milestones. So I did the
Mhm,
accounting
mhm,
degree, the finance postgrad, became the chartered accountant. That was the path. And I was just going to work at some financial firm and kind of work my way up. And
mhm.
yeah, that was the track I was on.
Okay, tell us more. Tell us more
Yeah.
about this track.
So one thing I realized very quickly is that I did not enjoy the work at all. I felt like auditing, which is what I was doing, was, and for those that don't know, auditing is you're basically going in and verifying that a company, what they're saying they did financially that year, is true. So you're going to like check invoices and talk to customers and like, oh, did these things actually happen, and blah blah. And what I found, that the job was basically like solving other people's problems, like, not in a good way. That's not a good way to describe it. I was just dealing with problems all the time. Like, oh, this invoice, we can't find it, we've lost it. Like,
Mm,
this oh, this, whatever. It's like, get into the technicalities, but it was just like one thing after another of this other business's problems that I had to try and help them think through. And not even like in a value add way. It was like I'm like signing off that this is, or helping my boss sign off that this was what happened. So anyway, it was miserable work. I really didn't enjoy doing it. What I did enjoy was meeting people who worked in these businesses, and becoming friends with them. And I I guess an interesting part of the story as well is that I started that part of my career with dreadlocks, which in South Africa was perhaps a little bit
Can
more
we please get a
acceptable.
photo?
I will. I will get you something, you can share it in the show notes today. But yeah, it was interesting. I got them in college. I went to my first year and a half at KPMG with them, and yeah, I mean, I got lucky. I had a boss who was open to it. He was like, all right, yeah, you can see what you know what you're doing. Like as long as you kind of wear it neatly and whatever, like I'm okay with this. And so he sort of backed me. I was also not in their like high profile client team. I was like working with small businesses, which was actually awesome because I got to work with some people were stuck on like one client a year. I had like 12 clients a year, and I got to learn lots of different business from like architecture firms to manufacturing to like, so that was really cool. And I got to meet the owners of these businesses, which was also awesome. Um, but yeah, I mean, I didn't enjoy it. I enjoyed working with the people and like helping them and connecting with them, but the work itself was really tiresome. The one good thing about working in a company like KPMG, though, for me at least, was that we get a lot of development work, a lot of L&D work for training. Like we go at least once a year on these like week-long training retreats to a small town, and I just fell in love with that. You'd have like 3 or 4 trainers that would lead the week for you, and I just wanted to be those people. I got to know them. I like wanted to hang out with them. I was like, how do I do what you're doing? This is all I wanted to do. And yeah, I I got on that path in my early in the career at KPMG. It was amazing. I I got to do some like presentation skills stuff and learn how to facilitate. And I was terrible at that at first. Like, this is another great lesson. Like, you're never good at something the first time you do it. Like, just accept that, and just get better at it. And I did that, and I got pretty good at facilitating. And so eventually, I eventually kind of got out of the auditing part and became a full-time facilitator in South Africa, which was amazing. So 3 weeks out of every month, I'd be in a different city teaching these classes, and it's just amazing. I absolutely love that. Um, and then I got an opportunity to come here to the States for 2 years to develop the material. So all of it was developed centrally here in the US. And I was like, yeah, that's actually cool. I can get to like learn how the sausage is made, and then come back to South Africa and teach more. And yeah, I mean, long story short, I came here, I spent the 2 years, and I just loved being here. We can talk more about that as well. I know you've had that experience, and I just didn't want to leave. I was adding a lot of value to the office here. My boss back in South Africa knew that and backed me. She was an incredible mentor, and she was just like, you need to stay. Let's because they have to like keep the role open or whatever. She's like, you're not coming back. I need to like move on. You need to move on. Let's make this formal. And yeah, I started that process, and then the firm sponsored a green card and all that sort of stuff.
Oh, yes, I definitely want to get more into that. Okay, so I didn't realize I actually, for some reason, made an assumption that you moved over as an auditor,
Yeah,
but
no,
you
I was,
actually moved
yeah,
over to learning and development, like
yeah,
from, because it was centralized, I'm assuming in New York, or,
yes,
that office
yes,
there. All right. Very, very interesting. That is very cool. Okay. I learned
yeah,
something new about you. You see, I just
yeah,
learning all these things. All
yeah,
right. Um, so you went over the 2 years and then you extended. So yeah. And tell me about that. Like, what did you love about living in America versus South Africa? What made you want to stay?
yeah,
Yeah, tell us that part of your story.
yeah. Um, so growing up in South Africa, living in South Africa, it's incredibly small town feeling. And that sounds weird to say of the country that's like 30, 40 million people, but the circles you tend to move in as a white South African are actually a lot smaller than the country. And so you kind of know everyone. I don't, this was certainly true for me in growing up in Cape Town, and like everyone knew everyone, and it was just there was something about that I mean, I loved it, part of it, but then when I came here, I experienced true anonymity. And
Mm,
I just fell in love with that because it meant I could be whatever I wanted to be. And no one had priors to go on to say like, oh, that's not you. People like, we all do this. We pigeonhole each other. And, growing up in that environment where everyone's pigeonholing everyone, it's like hard to break out of that. And I don't think I would have started my own business if I'd stayed in South Africa. I think I would have been on that same path and probably be working in some VP role now, hoping to be CEO one day still. Um, but I came here and I could reinvent myself. And it sounds weird to say that, but it's true. Like I could just be whoever I wanted to be.
Mhm. Mhm. That is freeing. That is
Mm,
truly, yeah, it's a freeing thing. Yes. And
yeah,
and also, yes, just because in South Africa, I know, and moving into such a bigger place, and it's not even necessarily bigger. I mean, I've moved to a very small town in
yeah,
America, tiny,
yeah,
little, but also like it's a fresh start, and
yes,
yeah, so yeah, very interesting.
yeah,
Okay, so you must have stayed in KPMG for quite a long time if they were sponsoring your green
yeah,
card and all of that. So
yeah,
you came for the 2 years. How long did you eventually keep working for KPMG, and
yeah.
what came after that?
Yeah, I think I stayed in total for about 12 years at the firm. So it was three in South Africa, or three or four, then those two on rotation, and there was probably another four or so after that. So it's something around there. So um I yeah, I mean, I had some amazing opportunities there. So I did the development work. The firm was rolling out this new technology at the time, and I was on the first team to develop the training for that, which then meant I became this like train the trainer. So I got to fly around the States a lot to different locations to teach how to teach this new this new technology. So that was amazing. And so I got to, I don't think I could ever just be a content developer, so
Mm,
that
yeah.
helped to round it out a bit. I somehow got tapped by the partner in charge of this group to be her advisor on the International Federation of Accounting's Education Standards Board, which was so bizarre, like super
Mhm.
technical committee that was developing these standards for education in accounting. And yeah, I was there to support her do all the legwork basically for like her thinking, which was amazing to just
Mm,
be in the room for those kind of conversations and to hear people like way more experienced than me and like debating these points and stuff. That was just interesting to like learn and see how that process went. And then my last stop at KPMG, I got to do executive education work. So I had another amazing female mentor who pulled me into her team that she'd started, and we spun up the executive education for the accounting or audits, the audit function of KPMG. So that was, I got to be the like head of the content there. So that was working with university professors around the country to bring them on board for workshops, kind of crafting the positioning and framing of those workshops, doing the marketing to sell that to people in markets and clients of KPMG and blah blah blah. So we're like so much of what I do now, is like was that kind of work.
yeah, yeah. Tell me some of the hard times during your 12-year
Yeah,
corporate career. What were some of the struggles, internal, whether it was a manager or just something you didn't agree with, or I don't know, almost that knowing that there's more or the bubbling because now you have your own business. So again, I'm making
yeah,
some assumptions here, but
yeah,
yeah, what are some hard
yeah.
moments?
Yeah, I mean, one that comes to mind, like when back in Cape Town when I was working in the audit, it was just I'd said I had like a lot of different clients. I did have one big one where we would do a 3 month audit, so it was the longest client we had. It was during the South African winter. It was their year end. This was Penny Pinchers. I don't know if you remember. It's like a big hardware store with locations all over the country. And that was just it was miserable. Like going to this industrial location every day in the dark, working until it was dark again, and driving home, and just like doing the same thing over and over, and then doing that every year for 3 years. Yeah, it was just so repetitive, and it felt. Yeah, I guess I don't know. I'm kind of thinking now, like it just felt like there's a better way to do this, and I think I haven't followed the profession a lot. I know like they're adopting AI a lot more, and so there are probably it just felt like this like manual brute force way of trying to prove that this company's results are what they say they are, and it just yeah, I just felt like this is just such a waste of time, you know.
Mm,
So it's kind of
mm, yeah.
despairing. Again, the only thing that saved me was just I had worked with great people got to, make some connections at the client that I enjoyed seeing. And yeah, but I mean, other than that, the work was like a drill going through my head, kind of
Mm,
very
mm.
tedious. Um,
Yeah,
yeah. So that was
yeah.
that was tough. Um, one other thing that pops to mind was then towards sort of the latter part of my time there was just kind of, it's sort of similar, like getting bored of the work. Like it was the same work, just routine work over and over again. And yeah, I mean, I would like dick around at work like so much. I look back on it sometimes now, and I hope these bosses aren't listening. But like, yeah, I would just like screw around a bit because it wasn't. I was like, okay, I've gotten the hang of this. Like, I can do this in 3 days, which means I've got 2 free days in this week,
Mhm.
and I can just like do whatever I want. And so I would like be on the internet and like chatting with people on WhatsApp or whatever. And yeah, so I look back with that with some shame, and like, yeah, I maybe could have pushed myself harder. I could have done other things harder, but I wasn't like passionate about it, So yeah, like I didn't have the motivation.
Yeah, and I want to actually dig into that a little bit more because I think so many people have that. Like, so I have definitely done that too, where I would just scroll Facebook, as soon as
Yeah,
Facebook opened in corporate,
yeah,
when
yeah.
it started, it was blocked and you
Hmm,
couldn't do it.
hmm.
And so it was too obvious on your phone. But
Yeah,
and there were definitely moments, and I feel guilty because I also did love my job. I loved it. I wanted to do well, but it's
yeah,
also, just those moments, and I think it ebbs and flows. And it's just speak more about that because maybe someone's listening and thinking, I'm being that. I'm that
yeah,
employee that, I'm going to look back and think, I'm going to feel some shame or some guilt around this.
yeah.
So, and
I,
and is that in those moments, did you feel like, I don't know, there's another job for you, or you could be doing more, or what was
yeah,
going through your mind then in hindsight?
yeah. It's a good question. I I think I think part of my problem, and so the regret that I feel looking back is that I could have like learned something, during that time. I could have like learned like, when I was starting my business, and we can talk about that. It was like I paid very high school fees. Like I made a lot of mistakes. I'm still doing that. I could have accelerated all of this and maybe been further along in my business now,
Mhm.
right?
Mm.
So that's like one regret I have. I mean, that's balanced by the fact that like I'm also really happy with where I'm now. So I don't, like it's not, but I do think like I wasted a lot of that time, and I think looking back, that would probably be the advice I give to myself there. I was like, okay, yeah, you find this job easy, it's not motivating, whatever, but like find something that does challenge you and that you're going to learn. This is like a thing I've adopted probably 5 or 10 years after that. So later in my career, that like just keep pushing yourself, keep trying to learn a new thing, keep like, whatever AI, whatever the thing was at the time that's coming out, just dive into it, try and figure it out, tinker, do, so yeah, that's the one regret I have. And what advice I might give to people is, if you do find yourself in that thing, find something that does light you up and that you're gonna like, you can learn from, and just
Mm.
dive into that.
Yeah, I love that advice. And
Yeah.
something that pushes you because,
Yeah.
yeah, if I'm just thinking back to that moment when I was just scrolling through Facebook, it's because I felt so confident in my work. I was like, I'm
Yeah.
so good at this. I don't
Yeah.
need to try hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
but you're not, like, you can always get better. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. It's
that
that
moment of
comfortable. It
thinking,
was like,
I was
yeah.
so good.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
And I'm saying that tongue in cheek, very, very deliberately, because
Yeah.
never so good that you can't get better.
But you
Okay.
can you can fall in the trap though of thinking that, like, whether
Mhm.
even if it's not
Mhm.
explicit, like you can, it's like it's coasting, right? It's like, oh yeah,
Mm.
like I've got this, I'm getting my paycheck at the end of the month, no matter
Mm.
what, even like I don't need to do this extra thing.
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
totally get that. And it's like something I wrestle with as a business owner, because I know people, on my team have to go through that as well, right? Like everyone does. So it's hard. And I don't know the answer to that. Like,
Mm.
yeah, it's hard.
Yeah. just ebbs and flows
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So, was there anything in between KPMG to you starting your own business? Because I want to know what led to that.
Yeah.
What was the spark to open up your own business?
Yeah.
Why did you do it? Because I
Yeah.
ask myself that very often. Why, Candace? Why did you
Why
do
did I
it?
do this to myself? Yeah.
No, but
Um,
jokes aside, why did you start it? Because I
yeah.
just know there's a spark and a fire underneath that.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's actually an important stepping stone that I had to go through, and this might not be true for everyone, but I think it's worth talking about how difficult it is to leave a big company that pays you a decent salary, no matter how hard you work, kind of what we've been saying, as long as you're meeting some minimum standard. It's really hard to leave that environment for something that's completely unknown and variable and volatile and like yeah, I couldn't make that big leap. So I was lucky enough at the time in that executive education role to so friends of mine from Cape Town started a hospitality training business. And it was like initially they were like the subject matter experts, had been trained in hospitality. They used to go around to lodges in South Africa and teach them service and that kind of stuff. Then they eventually digitized that and they started to sign on with like Hilton and Marriott and like so they took off. Head office in Geneva, Amsterdam, just amazing success. And I wanted to bring them into KPMG because what they were doing at the time was very innovative around like basically cinematic production for service. And I had this crazy idea that we could do that to teach like technical topics. And it didn't work out with KPMG, but in that period, I got to learn their business a lot, and we started talking. And we basically came up with this idea that I would help them open a New York office. And yeah, so they essentially guaranteed my KPMG salary, and I moved. Eventually, left KPMG. I had this. I remember driving in from like a team event with my boss, and like she was dropping me off at the train to get back to my apartment in New York, and I was like, Trisha, I gotta tell you something. She's like, what? I was like, I think I'm gonna, I think it's time for me to move on. And I'm like expecting the worst, you know. And she's just like, well, obviously, like I knew this was gonna happen. I've just been waiting for you to tell me, you know. And so she was amazing and made it so easy for me. But yeah, I joined this team. I helped them start a New York office. I became a head of learning in that company, and it was in a crazy 18 months of working in a startup, selling to we were driving. I remember driving the founder around and my friend around like all these different places in America. Like we're going to go and meet all these hotel companies and stuff. So that was awesome, and it was a stepping stone. So I got the experience of working in a startup. I had to be scrappy and figure out how do you start a company, how do you all that kind of stuff. But I was doing it on like a guaranteed salary, and
Mm,
so that was
mm,
amazing for 12 or 18 months. But then became the point where I was like, okay, I'm not going to get equity in this company. I was sort of too late for that. They were not like growing like crazy. I just needed, and ultimately I needed, like, this is something I'm sure you feel as well as a business owner. I needed to be in charge of my calendar, of my time, of what I do, how I do it. I like craved, I've always craved that. That was also so appealing about leaving the pick and pay job to do the maths teaching,
mhm,
and
mhm,
so yeah, so long story short, I think what's important here for people is like if you can find that stepping stone, that thing that you can do while keeping a full-time job, or like maybe it's a job that's a slightly lower pay, but it's still you covering your bills and you could get to do these other things. Like that was invaluable for me. I could never have made the leap all the way. Um, and yeah, so we can talk about then now how I left the startup if you want. But yeah,
mhm.
anything on that?
Um, no, let's keep going. I mean, I'm thinking, I'm
Yeah,
churning as you're talking because yes, that's huge. I think a lot of people need a push or need a
yeah,
safety net, or either people are pushed or they need that they step into.
Yeah.
something with comforts.
Totally. Safety
Yeah.
nets are,
Although at
yeah,
the same time, it's definitely pushing you out of your comfort zone. So I'm not saying like you stepped into this pillow room, that it's all cozy. That's not what it is.
yeah,
It's still stepping beyond what's comfortable,
yes,
but with a little bit of a safety net. Yeah. Okay.
yes. It is more the
So
safety net without the like guaranteed growth. And so it was just uncertain how this company
mm,
would go. But
yeah,
then, yeah,
yeah.
then I was like, I needed to do my own thing. That was a very difficult conversation to sit down with my friend who was the co-founder
Mm,
and be like, I'm leaving. And yeah, like that actually ended up being quite a very difficult conversation. And
mm,
yeah, like our friendship has never really been the same since then. But yeah, I mean, I needed to do my own thing, and that's what I did. And there's the good story here. I mean, I think for people listening is that the thing that gave me the confidence to do it was that I had a friend from back in my KPMG days who'd since left and gone to JP Morgan. And we'd kept in touch, and I was learning about what he was doing. And I had pitched this idea of doing, again, this going back to the idea I had KPMG of like technical type training, but with this high cinematic production quality. And he was like sold on this idea. I was like, yeah, this is going to work and blah, blah, blah. So I basically decided to do this based on the fact that I was going to get a contract with JP Morgan and then kind of take it from there. And I, I've never worked with a bank like that before. We've never created compliance training videos. I actually did create a batch once with friends of mine at a production company in Brooklyn. And we created a bunch of like videos that we made up to showcase this. And I've never sold those. Like I never sold that as a product. And it's kind of crazy looking back. Like who would spend all that money to make videos about compliance training? Like just just bizarre. But anyway, it for some reason gave me the confidence to do it, and I did it, and I I don't know how else to say this, but I got lucky. Like I got lucky. I was open to opportunity. I was working really hard to get it, but I got lucky. Like the first client we landed was not that. It was not the thing that I thought we would be landing. It was actually someone who had interviewed at the company. It was called Lobster Inc. They interviewed there, or were about to interview there, and had seen on LinkedIn that I was working there and was going to reach out to me. It was the exact time that I was leaving. And so she reached out to me. We didn't connect at the time. Actually, no, I think she didn't reach out then, but that's how I got on her radar. She didn't get that job. She got another job at a company called 1010 Data. And then she reached out to me again because she had seen that I had started my own company. And she was like, "Yeah, I just got this new role. We need to do a bunch of product training with this product. Like, is this something you do?"
mm,
And yeah, I mean, I was in the thing of, you know, like we will do anything. And so I said, yeah, we definitely do that. And yeah, that was the first
mhm.
client, and that 100% saved saved my business.
Yeah, and oftentimes it only takes the one, but you need that one
Yeah,
to keep moving forward. Okay, so now you got this first client and you're building a business. So now I want to know not so much about your product or service, but about you and your experience as a business owner
yeah.
growing a business.
Oh my God, it's just feels like one hard lesson after the
Yeah.
other.
Yeah, you said you paid expensive school fees, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Tell us
totally.
about
Yeah.
those school fees.
Oh man, so many mistakes. Yeah, I mean, what the first one, I actually just had a call with someone this week who's just leaving corporate to start his own thing, and I was giving him this advice. I said, I spent way too much time thinking about the name and business card and like website for the business. It didn't matter. Like what mattered was, and I mean, like looking, I mean, it has mattered somewhat looking back because I'm happy with the name we have, and I think that was. But I mean, the name was the easy part. Like I spent so much time like on the logo and the business card and stuff like that. And I was just like, why? Like looking back, I'm like, why did I spend that many months? Instead, what I should have been doing, and this is advice for anybody, is like just go and talk to customers. Because my biggest lesson at the beginning was that they will tell you what they need. And it may be what you do, but it'll be framed in their words. And you and I have talked about this a lot, but it's like they will tell you what they want, and it's how they say it that matters. It's not what you think, you know. And so you always have to like balance this. And I think at the beginning you just have to be open to anything and do custom work and just like get until you like find that niche. But you always have to be listening for how people describe the problem
Mm-hmm.
and the solution they're looking for, and you give them that, give them what they want. That was the biggest thing I learned. The market drew my business out of me, for sure.
Ooh, I like that framing. The
Yeah,
market drew my business out of me. Yes, because you have and you have so many skills, right? Although you want to
yeah,
do this one thing because you enjoy it and that's what gives you energy, but
yeah,
maybe it looks slightly different. Like it's slightly different packaging. So yeah, I really I like that framing.
yeah.
This whole episode, I'm like, all right, this is another like Andrewism. I might now I'm gonna pull out all these Andrewisms and make a list.
Yeah, these are the
The
hard won
market drew
lessons.
my business out of me. I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
So I might need to make a list. We'll run the transcript through AI
yeah.
and make a list.
Oh, I'd love to see that. Yeah, I mean, they were the like yeah, I had to learn them the hard way. So I feel like it's
Mhm,
the benefit of, yeah, this is the benefit of that process. But that, I mean, that was took me a long time and a lot of mistakes of like going out there with a certain message and just hammering it against the wall and trying to figure out why people aren't resonating with it. And then,
mhm,
so yeah, just talking to customers has been huge, and just being curious and open the whole time. Like, yeah,
mhm. How's your business evolved from the beginning? And then I think, and this is also one of the good points to ask you, what are we not speaking enough about? And it's not necessarily just for people running their own businesses. It can be for people in their careers. I'd just like
yeah,
to see your evolution and how that links to what are the things we need to be speaking about more to build
yeah,
this life that you want to live.
yeah. Yeah, and maybe to go back to something we talked about at the beginning, and then I can answer your question about evolution in this way as well. Is I think the thing we need to talk more about is intellectual humility. That's that idea that I don't know what I don't know. That there's so much more of the world that's out there that I'm not seeing. And this was true when I was 18. It's still true now that I'm 42. Like I still am now. I just am now more conscious of it. That there's a lot more out there that I don't know, and I'm trying to you're trying to learn that, and you do that by building relationships and connecting with people and being curious. And I think I did at the beginning earlier in my career have more of a like, I know how the world works and this is the path I'm going to go on, and just like a lot more certainty. And I think that humility is an important balancing act. um because yeah, I mean, the business evolved so much. Like I also didn't fully commit to Curious Lion from the beginning. Like I started in 2017, but then I also started in like 2018 or 19 a lead generation business, because this is how ridiculous it was, Candace. I had like come up with a way to generate some leads for my business, and like maybe got one or two, and then thought, I know how to do lead generation, so I'm going to do that as a side business, like such a moron. um it's like so ridiculous. Yeah. But so I did that for a bit. I made a bit of money doing that, but also, it was never going to grow in any meaningful way. It was also not my like core passion again, so that eventually closed down. I got into the world of like entrepreneurs and helping basically entrepreneurs create online courses. Around COVID, I started to write a lot on Twitter about this, and I got a bit of a following, and then did a course joining a company called On Deck, and ran a course which was amazing. We had 100 people sign up. We made like $400,000 or something. I I was not I didn't see a lot of that. I was just getting a salary, but that was amazing. I did learn a lot there about digital marketing and like how to build a brand basically. Um, but that also distracted me a little bit from Curious Lion. And so eventually, I'd say like 2021, probably 22, I came back to Curious Lion as a core business and as the focus, the only focus. And that changed everything. And I think that's a very important lesson for people. It's like, just find what's the essential thing, what's the one thing you're doing, and whether that's something you like find particularly lucrative or that you're passionate about, and hopefully it's both, and just keep doing it. Just keep doing it. And that's and so like Curious Lion has been 8 years. I feel like it's only a 2 or 3 year old business because I've only like fully gone into it now, and that evolution has taken us. We did a lot of different things. We tried like sales enablement for a bit, and that was interesting. And we still do a bit of that. Learned something from there, but we've really kind of evolved into this leadership development firm consultancy, so we can go in, help you with the specific challenge that you're working on, but now we also have some products that are tangible. So it's not just we can do anything. It's like we have these couple of products, we can do that, and that's our main thing, but we also can help you with other stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, so much of that, and I think I've tried to learn that is just stick with one thing and keep going and keep refining that rather than keep adding new things. So
Yeah.
that's such an important lesson.
Yeah.
And truly, even in a career, as you move, just find what do you love. It doesn't necessarily, if you kind of feeling stuck, it doesn't necessarily mean you need to go from accounting to marketing. It doesn't have to
Yeah.
be so drastic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Tiny
that's very good
pivots.
advice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
step by
Yeah.
step.
Yeah.
And it's also just funny, and I kept thinking as you were saying that when you called yourself a moron, it's amazing like how you get older, how much less you know than when
Yeah.
you were younger. Yeah,
Totally.
so
Totally. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. I was such a moron. Okay, so
Yeah.
and while we're talking about the business, so before I'm going to ask you the wrap up question, tell
Yeah.
people why they should contact you, because yeah, we'll have your links in the description, so we don't need to know your LinkedIn, but why
Yeah.
should people be contacting you and getting
Yeah.
help?
Yeah, so I think I see where we've really developed. Me specifically, have developed a skill is sort of combining the business acumen that I developed from being an accountant and auditor, and in that consulting business, and then the learning expertise I've built up kind of through my own learning. Um, and what I'm very good at doing now is being able to sit down with someone and really help them develop an idea for a learning intervention into a reality. And so that's one big reason to reach out, is if you have this like vision for what's possible and you don't have the time or the resources to make it to do it yourself. We love working and partnering with companies on that. And yeah, I mean, I'll just leave it there. I'm, and I just love having those kind of conversations. So if anybody has those kind of ideas, I'm happy to even just workshop them with them.
Mm, awesome. All right, so as we close, going back
Yeah.
to young you,
Yeah.
however far you want to go back. I don't know. Maybe you're a teenager, maybe you were 10 years old, doesn't matter. What would you thank yourself for doing then?
Yeah, that's a good question. For not stopping, for not giving up,
Mm,
for all these mistakes and all these like wrong paths that I went on, not getting discouraged and down, and like just actually just keeping going, And yeah, I mean, I'm like, I want to say to my younger self almost like you did it, like you're okay. I know how much you doubted yourself and how much you looked at others and compared yourself and thought you weren't meeting up and measuring up, and you were good enough all along, and you've got me to where I am, you know and yeah, and I'm incredibly grateful for where I am now. So um yeah, just thanks for not giving up.
that is perfect. I love that ending. It is so good. And I love that you said you were good enough all along. Like,
Mm,
yeah,
we all
so,
need to hear that,
so
huh?
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all need to
Yeah.
hear that. Thank you,
Yeah.
Andrew. Thank you for your time and being here. Is there any final thing you want to say before we click stop?
No, I just want to thank you, Candice, for having this kind of conversation. And I love that last question. And I hadn't prepped for it. And it was, yeah. So just thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Bye.